Okay, today I want to do something different than I've done in the previous videos. Enough of the hot takes about stories in D&D. I think I got my point across. Some people agree, some people don't agree. The central thesis being, I think the primacy of narrative has gone a little too far in Dungeons and Dragons, and I personally want to scale it back a little bit. And I'm not really here to tear down other people's games. I mean, if you're enjoying pure narrative in your D&D experience, hey, more power to you. Keep doing you. I want to try and build something a little different for myself, though. And so I want to introduce a project that I've been working on and see what you think. So if you have feedback on this as I go, it's at very early stages, so this is a bit half-baked. I haven't thought it all through fully, so I'm in the spirit of working out in the open. I just want to show this and see what you think. So I'm tentatively calling this HEXCOM, and this is inspired by an homage to the HEXCOM video games, and you'll see why here in a bit. I just don't, it's not that I think that story games are bad. It's just that they've become a bit too loosey-goosey for my tastes, and I want to systematize things just a little bit more. And what's informing this is my interest in war games. And in particular, a couple of books that I've been reading. The first one is called The Art of Wargaming, A Guide for Professionals and Hobbyists by Peter Perla. This book traces the history of the war game, and it looks how they've been used by the Navy War College in particular. And it really defines a fundamental principle of designing, playing, and evaluating war games. And so obviously D&D has its roots in wargaming, and I would like to get back to that a little bit. And I kind of done with OSR, old school RPGs for a little bit. I want that return to wargaming, but with a more modern approach. And as I've mentioned before, I'm really done with 5e for a while at least. And so I think 4th edition is the ideal edition for this idea, for this project that I'm starting. I'm also being informed by a book called Setting Up Wargame Campaigns by Tony Bath, the legendary Tony Bath. If you're at all familiar and versed in wargaming, you'll know that name. So I'm using these two books in particular to build this new project and hopefully create something unique to me anyway. I'm not saying I'm inventing something wholly new here, but I think that I want to approach D&D in a different way. So if you've seen something like this, or you know of other players or DMs or anybody out there thinking about D&D in the same way, let me know, because I really truly am interested in this, and I'd like to borrow ideas and learn from other people as well. The hex in HEXCOM sort of implies a warlock is at play. And so what I'm doing here is I'm trying to strip out all the story elements I can and start sort of from first principles, not exactly from the beginning, but see if we can build something up and see if a story will emerge through this style of play. And so, as I said, I'm going to use 4th edition for this, and in particular, because I really think 4e is cool. I think it gets too much hate, needs more love. I'm going to play 4e for at least a while. And so this channel, I think, is going to be devoted to 4e content for the time being anyway. So expect to see more 4e stuff and less just me getting on the mic ranting. I think I've said what I need to say. It's time to build something new. So I want to push the boundaries of this don't pre-plan stories and see what emerges. I'm really inspired by Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and all the amazing appendices that are in the back of that DMG. And I want to see if we can use similar tools in 4th edition to do an inspired gameplay, but also something new. So I've got here pulled up the random encounters section in the Dungeon Master's Guide for 4th edition. And so we're going to go through this, and I'm going to show you some tools that I've built, and I want to show you how I think of this HEXCOM as a game mode, but also a tech stack, and also an ethos for how to think about and play Dungeons and Dragons. Here I've got the random encounters. So let's go through this real quick. They're pretty meager at first glance, but I think you'll see that they generate really cool encounters. So to do a random encounter here with this table, there's a couple of different ways. You can do it this way, or you can use the encounter deck method. I'm really focused on just this, the encounter basics here. Before you create your random encounter, you need to establish its difficulty and its basic nature. So here, 60% of the random encounters will be moderate, 20% will be easy, 20% will be hard. And if you're familiar with easy, moderate, hard in 4E, you'll know what this means. It's basically, moderate is at the party's level, easy is a couple levels under, hard is, 2 to 4 levels above the party level. And then you roll a d10 on the encounter template, and you'll get a template for how the monsters will be formed. So you've got commander and troops, wolf pack, dragon's den, battlefield control, and double line. And what this means is commander and troops will have just that, a commander and troops. A wolf pack will be a group of similar monsters. A dragon's den is, a solo monster. Battlefield control focuses on that. And then a double line will be 2 different types. So again, if you're familiar with 4E, you'll know about the different roles like skirmisher or artillery. And so that will inform this encounter. And then the encounter extra features here will replace or add traps, hazards, or a lurker. So it'll make it a little bit harder or change the dynamics of the encounter. I'm not going to get into the encounter deck here. This is not the way I'm approaching this, but you'll see up here that it says, then comes the tricky part, choosing specific monsters to build the encounter. For traps and hazards, choose an example in Chapter 5 that's closest to the level you want. For monsters, your best bet is to use the Monster Manual's list of monsters by role and level. Well, fortunately, in hindsight, we have the benefit of all available content for 4E is already been published. So what we can do is actually roll and choose monsters from the entire group. Something like, I don't know. I mean, there's thousands of monsters at this point. At least hundreds. And so hopefully by pulling from every available monster and every available trap and terrain, we're going to get, each time we generate these, just really unique and different encounters. This is pretty straightforward, just combat oriented. Again, as I said, I'm approaching this as a war game, not as a story. So I'm not particularly concerned about any kind of cohesive narrative. I just want to set up skirmish level fighting against monsters, but not in the AD&D way of, you come across, a band of nomads. You might if there's nomads in 4th edition, but what I'm really focused on here is generating a precise encounter as described here, strictly using published official content for 4th edition. Okay, so what will probably end up happening here with HEXCOM is we're going to have something like a mission-based objective, hopefully with an immersion story, but we'll see how this goes as we run through this experiment over the coming weeks, months, however long. If it works, if it doesn't work, well, I'll just abandon it. But I mentioned that I was thinking of this as sort of an ethos as well. And so I'm thinking of this as, very strictly rules as written, everything very well documented, with hopefully at the end of each encounter, something like a hot wash is what it's called in Wargaming, or full analysis with receipts. So we see exactly the characters, exactly the encounter, and we can, and hopefully a log of precisely what was done in that encounter. And so that will come out of the tech stack here, which I'll show you. So obviously there's not a table like there is in AD&D for rolling up these random monsters. So I've created a tool I'm lovingly calling Appendix X, which is an homage to the Appendix A, B, etc. in AD&D. So I'm going to show that to you now. So this is written in JavaScript, and I'm following the random encounter table as closely as I possibly can. So this should be a very, very close generation right out of the book, except we're going to be using all available monsters, all available traps, all available treasure, etc. So I'm not going to go through every line of code here, but I just want to show you that what's going on. So here, here's that easy, moderate, hard table with the exact distribution. We've got the commander and troops, wolf pack, dragon's den, etc. And so what happens here is, whatever it rolls up, there's a function here that will generate battlefield control encounter, a wolf pack encounter, and that it will be for easy, moderate, hard, and it handles the replacement functions of that extra feature that was in the book as well. And so it also adds in some terrain. And this is straight out of the DMG as well. And it also, I didn't show this in the book. Maybe I can here. There's also treasure parcels. Let's see if I can find that real quick. Treasure parcels. You'll see here that everything, as you know, 4E, if you're familiar with 4E, everything is really well constructed, and everything has an XP budget, and it really makes it easy to build these kind of encounters. So Appendix X, this little program that I wrote, uses the treasure parcels exactly. So it rolls up. Now, in your game, if you're doing this, you might do this in order. In this case, I'm randomly rolling on this 1 through 10 here. So you'll get a random parcel on each encounter based on your party. Okay. So that's all here. Get random treasure parcel. And then we determine the encounter extra feature. That's that trap hazard lurker, and that either replaces, swaps out a monster, or it adds it in. And we then write out everything to a JSON file, but also a markdown file. And that markdown file is because I'm also using GPT to take that generated encounter and just add a bit of narrative structure to it. And this is an experimental feature that, again, I'm trying to pull back from pre-planning stories, but I still want to add some flavor text to it. And so I think GPT is really good for that. And just I want to be very clear here. I'm not generating these encounters with GPT. I'm using the DMG random encounter and then just tying it all together with some flavor text from GPT. So just so you know what's going on there. So again, I really want to emphasize I'm using all the options from official sources, and we're going to be approaching this from a wargaming perspective. And I haven't seen this a ton. I'm not saying this doesn't exist, but I would like, my desire for myself, for my own game, is I want to see D&D 4E played like a war game. And so these experiments, this HEXCOM project experiment that I'm running here, just starting, is my stab at that. So without further ado, let's actually run this, and I'm going to run it one time, and I'm going to see what kind of encounter we get. So I've tested this, so I know it works, but what I want to do here is just generate one here on video, and then we'll see what we get. So I'm going to do a party level of 1. You can set this to any level you want. But what I need to do is run the build encounter. And so this takes about a minute because of the GPT aspects of it. It only takes a few milliseconds to actually generate the encounter itself. But this is going out to an online resource that has all the 4E content. And it pulls in random elements. There's functions for that. So we've got an encounter saved as level 1, and it rolled up a moderate. Okay, so let's look at that. We'll look at the markdown. Okay, encounter title: The Den of Chain and Shadows, level 1. So this is an encounter of 725 XP. In the heart of the accursed Blackthorn Labyrinth, a den of perilous shadows and unleashing squalls of dread vibrates with the echoing cries of despair. The iron maw of the entrance gapes wide, drawing adventurers into a confrontation with Sinruth, the conniving hobgoblin chieftain, a warlord of iron will and ruthless command. Sinruth, adorned in sinister plate armor and wielding a spiked chain that clatters ominously, has woven a network of terror throughout the nearby villages. He is guarded by his fierce pet, the leaping felldrake, an insidious beast of agile ferocity. Okay, so each encounter that's generated with Appendix X is in the same structure. You get the scenario, you get a map description, you get the DM's read aloud, and then you get the monsters here, and then you get monster tactics, and then the treasure. So in this case, we get Sinruth, the hobgoblin chieftain, and you can go out to this link here, and you can actually look at the monster stat for Sinruth. And then we've got a leaping felldrake. So this is looking like it might be I think this is a solo encounter with an elite. Okay, so we've got Sinruth and the Leaping Felldrake, a solo and elite at a moderate level. And so Sinruth utilizes his mastery of the spiked chain to control the battlefield, often yanking foes, battering them with his chain. And we don't have an added trap, so there's no traps or hazards here, but we do have difficult terrain. Rubble and loose stones scattered throughout areas of the lair marked on the map create hazardous footing. Requires an extra square of movement to enter these spaces. And then if we win this encounter, we get a precarious crystal. It's an alchemical item. The crystal has a deep azure core, seeming to pulsate with inner energy. All right, and so that is an actual 4E treasure. So on that parcel table, that treasure parcel table, one of the options was, or four of the options were magical item of varying levels. And so it pulled one of those, level 5. So it's a magical item 4 levels above. That's basically the best magical item you can get out of a level 1 encounter. So pretty good pull here. So now the idea here is I take this generated encounter and then I go build this, and here's the tech stack part. I go build this in Dungeon Alchemist. Dungeon Alchemist is a great program that allows you to, this is on Steam, it allows you to easily and very quickly build maps. So in this case, I'm not going to do the whole thing in this video, maybe in a later video, but I'll just show you here. I can do like abandoned ruins, do like maybe a temple here. So I can pull this out and then, you know, easily get a room like this. Okay. And so we could say this is the starting map for the den of chains and shadows. And so what I do is I can easily export this to Foundry. So that's also part of the tech stack here is Foundry. Export this. It exports the lights and the walls to Foundry. I can easily import that, and then off we go. It's very fast, very easy. Now, another part of the tech stack is the character builder. You may or may not be familiar with this, but this is the character builder that Wizards of the Coast built years ago during the heyday of 4th edition. It's being kept alive as by the community. If you go visit the community on Discord, you'll see where to grab this and how to install it. I'm not going to get into that here, but so the idea also is, and I'm not quite settled on this yet, whether I want to do purely random characters or if I want to actually do builds. I think both work. I'm going to do an auto build here. Boom. I get Petru. I can set all these myself. And we're going to see what we get here. Petru. We're just going to click next through all this. A Shadarkai Scion. Pretty cool. So let's take a look at what we get here. Got the ability scores. Got some nice skills, and here are the powers. I'm just going to click right through this. I'm going to save Petru real quick. And I need to see what the powers are. Mental trauma. Okay. Choose this at level 1. All right, just, pretty standard Scion build. And the reason I want to do random is because I really want to study. I want to use HEXCOM from a war game analysis perspective, study what happens when we do random encounters with random characters, all valid builds. So everything has to be strictly valid. Published sources, they have to validate. So you can see here the status is legal. And I want to see what happens when we throw these random elements together. And so, and then at the end, win or lose, publish all of the materials that were generated, the maps, the characters, everything in like an easily accessible data format so that others can study this 4E experience, and maybe we can like share notes. I'm not saying you're going to go out and play this in this way necessarily. I think it would be cool if people did, but I'm going to do this. So myself, and I think you can do this solo, or you can have people drop in very easily here. And I'll make another video where we actually play through one of these. But I can drop in Sinruth and the Fell Dragon here, and then just like XCOM, perhaps generate a pool of 4 to 5 characters, and then recruit them into your adventuring party for that mission, and just see how things go. And again, just like publish everything, all receipts, all documents, everything generated at the end for analysis. I think this is a really potentially fun way to play D&D. I'm excited to try it, excited to see how it plays out, and I'm really excited to see what people think about this, if this is of value to anyone, or, I mean, somebody will tell me if I'm stupid here, no doubt about that, but I also would like to do this, run these encounters, on Discord or on YouTube or something, and then, really also use it to learn the 4E rules. I'm pretty rusty with it, so I want to see, I want to play everything very strictly by the books, everything like legal and valid, and just see what emerges from a style of play like this. So that's the kind of rough overview of this project I'm calling HEXCOM. Would love to know what you think. Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in another video where we actually run through one of these. Thanks.